We're back again with Uncle Taleb. Different topic, different aphorism. He writes, "The most depressing aspect of the lives of couples you watch surreptitiously arguing in restaurants is that they are almost always unaware of the true subjects of argument." So this is going to be somewhat related, kind of sequel to previous video in which we were discussing better and worse ways of communicating and how people often get trapped in this debate format that doesn't end up benefiting them even if they're right. And at the end of that video, we were referencing pragmatics, and I touched on this other concept. In addition to the punctuation of the sequence concept, this other notion of there are different layers of communication. And one model or lens through which you can view communication is to separate or make a distinction between content and the relationship aspects of communication. And this aphorism by Taleb gives me an opportunity to expand on that idea, because I didn't really go into much detail. I don't think I was very clear about it in that old video. So to be more specific, when it comes to the content, that stuff relates to the sort of logical syntax of your communication. It's the things, the names, the times, the places. You know, if you're using text messages, often people, they rely on it for just purely factual information. You know, where is this place, the location of something, the time of something, the name, the date, etc. And that is content. Now, that's obviously very useful, but this other layer is often what really matters when it comes to disputes between people and relationships as a whole. And so that is basically everything else. It's how the content stuff, in addition to everything that's non-verbal, and also all the tonality and the pitch and everything else, that all the other ingredients that make up how the content is delivered, that is the relational stuff. And that is used to conclude or interpret something about your relation to another person and what the delivery of the communication says about the nature of the relationship. And so I thought this aphorism by Taleb was apt, because whether he's aware of it or not, I don't know if he's familiar with pragmatics and this kind of thing, but nonetheless, his comments apply to what we're talking about, where, as I mentioned in the previous video, people often get stuck because they're arguing on this content level. And they're just going round and round and round about content. And they're never getting to the relational stuff, which is what actually matters. And what the authors of pragmatics argue, that that's really the primary, if not the only way, to get out of this cycle of just arguing about content, is that you have to go this layer up and communicate about what the communication says about the nature of the relationship. If you can't do that, you're just stuck in this cycle ad infinitum. And there are many depictions of this. You may have seen, it's not a particularly good movie, but there's this old sort of romantic comedy, I suppose, called The Breakup. And there's one scene that is just done spectacularly well. It's really well done. Every bit of it, the script is just perfect, and the way it's delivered. And it's a perfect, maybe I'll do some sort of deep analysis on it with the clips or the scenes, but it's a beautiful depiction of what can happen if you just fixate on content and you never get to that other level. So basically, just briefly, the dispute is a couple and they're at home after hosting some guests, and the wife makes this, or the girlfriend makes this request for the boyfriend to just clean some dishes, and he's busy playing video games. It's quite a stereotypical scene, I suppose. And he's saying in a minute, delay. And she's getting increasingly frustrated that he isn't taking action. And eventually her frustration boils over and they get into this argument. And it's this heated back and forth about the dishes. And they just remain stuck on the dishes. And there's this classic question, or this interaction they have where the woman says, "You should want to do the dishes." And the man replies, "Why would I want to do dishes?" And it's such a perfect illustration of what can happen again when you're stuck on content, and especially when you're interpreting content literally. So whether the woman is aware of it or not, she wants the guy to want to do the dishes, not because dishes are fun to do, which is what the man seems to be sort of interpreting in this literal sense, that why would anyone want to do dishes? He's not understanding the relational component, which the wife may have more of an understanding of, but is not clearly articulating this to him in a way that he can comprehend, at least. That to her, the desire to do the dishes says something about his commitment or care for her. And likewise, her observation that he is not doing this is interpreted as a lack of interest or commitment or care for her. That is the core of the disagreement, the conflict, which they never get to. And so it just explodes, and they end up breaking up. So again, to go back to what Taleb was saying, this is often what happens. And it's once you're aware of this way of looking at communication, you'll see it everywhere. And it's kind of sad because there is a way out of this, but couples or people as a whole, it obviously doesn't just affect romantic relationships. It can show up anywhere, where if you get stuck on this content level and you're not going the layer up to figure out, okay, what is being communicated here or interpreted about the nature of the relationship that is deemed to be potentially problematic. If you don't do that, it's pretty unlikely that the relationship is going to be sustainable. So I hope that was informative. By all means, go read Pragmatics for yourself if you want full, in-depth, highly esoteric, abstract, high-level explanation of all this stuff. But hopefully that's given you some sense of why people get stuck in these patterns of dispute that seem to never get resolved. They're just having the same argument for months, years, decades. All right, thanks.